Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
If you could start off and tell us a little bit about your backstory and what was your life like before you started the journey to improve your health?
Well, I guess as a child, I was pretty heavy. Up until like 5 or 6, I was probably a normal weight, and then I started to get pudgy, and then I started to get chubby, probably by 9 or 10, and by middle school, I was somewhat hefty and definitely noticeably overweight. I get picked on every once in a while, and it wasn't fun, and I was self-conscious by that point in time. And then by the time high school got around, I was, it was everything was really out of control. I was well over 300 pounds. Then by the time I got up to college, a 350-pound medical scale I couldn't tell how much I weighed anymore. To be completely honest with you, I couldn't figure it out. So, it was just kind of a slow gain. And then sometime in college, I started to just the question started to fester, why not me? Why can't I live a healthier life? But, up until that point that I did decide to change, it was it was hectic. I had no organization. I was eating whatever the hell I wanted day and night, big meals once or twice a day and not really spreading anything out. And, it was kind of a bummer. I honestly just felt trapped. To me, it was just like, there's certain people who are heavy, there's certain people who are thin, there's certain people who are muscular. I just happened to be the guy who was born to be heavy, and it sucked. So that was kind of what it was like beforehand.
Mm-hmm. And so when you had that mindset of, hey, maybe I can't change, what really was the tipping point where you're like, man, I've had enough, it's time to go?
Well, I can tell you the first time I had a setback over a couple-year period in the middle there. I say middle of my life, but I'm only 9 right now. When I was about 19 years old, I started to really think. I remember it was like right around Easter Sunday, and I started to kind of say, the only difference between me and my buddies who are of normal weight are the decisions they're making and what they're putting in their bodies every day. I started to think, if I follow them around, if it were physically possible to follow them around and eat exactly what they were eating, whatever their parents were giving them, whatever they were snacking on, at some point in time down the road, I would catch up to them physically. There'd be no other way about it. There's nothing. They weren't born any special way that I wasn't, with any special bodily functions that I wasn't. It was just simply a matter of when they were eating junk food, they were eating less of it. And when they were eating healthy food, they were eating more of it than I was. And so I started to say, really, this can be me. It's up to me. I've got to decide whether or not I want to do this, and I've got to figure out how to get out of it. But ultimately, I started to get really accountable, I guess, in the beginning. That was kind of the tipping point, is realizing that this was up to me. This was not some preordained lot in life that I'm just living out, just because I've got bad luck. Like, this was my own doing. And once I started to realize that, then I started to say, why not me? Why can't I change? And then I picked up a copy of, I remember, Men's Health magazine. And I flipped right to the Belly Off Club, and I saw this guy who was big. He wasn't as big as me, but he was really big, and he looked amazing. He lost a ton of weight, and he was about a little bit older than me, and you really could never tell that he was overweight to begin with. A lot of people lose weight, and they don't really finish the job, so you can kind of tell that they're still 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 pounds depending on how heavy they used to be, that still need to get knocked off. Mm-hmm. And there's still some, you can tell. And this guy just looked great. And it was a huge inspiration to me to see that, he could really just get that and erase that completely from his life. Like, there was no lingering, there was no residual effect of that whatsoever. So that really inspired me to kind of start to look more into eating right and exercising and getting active and, kind of slowly putting one foot in front of the other and building that momentum up. That was kind of the tipping point there.
And so now that you had that change in mindset, how exactly did you get started, and how much did you weigh right before you got started?
Well, I'll tell you, I would guesstimate it was between 410 and 425 when I first got started. The reason that I guesstimate is because until I got down to 349, I couldn't tell how much I weighed based on my scale. So what I did was, it took me 2 months to be able to weigh in after I started eating less. I substituted soda for diet soda at the time, and now I don't drink any soda because I'm trying. But it was all about a stepping stone. So I'm just telling you about the very beginning right now. Mm-hmm. I swapped regular soda for diet soda for the caloric intake and water as well, and mostly diet soda because I was still a 400+ pound guy. I had to I needed indulgences. It wasn't just like and nobody can. It's unreasonable to think anybody can just go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a stepping stone. So I swapped out soda for diet, and then I started being more mindful about eating breakfast. I started doing a lot of research, looking at a lot of studies about what was really working, what wasn't. I'd find studies about dairy. I'd find studies about eggs. I'd find studies about whole grains, things like that. So, I started eating eggs for breakfast. I'd have Power Bar, protein bars for snacks at the time. If I was in college or something like that, I'd pick out food in the cafeteria that worked for me. And then at night I'd have a cookie or something like that just as a reward. And I'd get to the gym for 30, 40 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. That was really kind of the start of it. And then it took 2 months for me to see 349. And then the next month I lost 30 pounds doing the same exact thing. So that's how I extrapolated. I weighed somewhere between 410 and 425 for the weight to still be coming off at 30 pounds a month, as heavy as I was.
Gotcha.
Kind of how I backtracked to figure out that number. So that was kind of how I got started. It was really embarrassing. I mean, I can remember the first month I got on the treadmill, it would literally, there'd be maintenance required lights that would come up by the time I was done just walking on it for 30 minutes, the noises it would make. That's how I got started listening to music, because it was just so embarrassing. It was either I had to put headphones on to drown it out to save myself from hearing it because I knew everybody else could, or I was just going to quit. And I just bought a CD player, a Sony Walkman, and I would play music so I didn't have to hear the whining of the treadmill. And it'd still be embarrassing because it'd still break and need fixing, but I mean, I just kind of powered through and tuned it out, so to speak, no pun intended with the music.
So did you experience any setbacks along the way?
Oh, yeah, tons. I mean, in the beginning when I first started, I was kind of lost. I thought that the Atkins was the way to go. So I was super motivated, and I've always been able to really, since that point in time, tap into motivation and really figure out and understand how to stay pumped up for the long term. But in the beginning, I did no carb. And when I mean I did no carb, I literally did 0 carb except for ketchup on my eggs in the morning for a month. I ended up in the hospital. I was puking all on my buddy's lawn one night. I had to go to the ER. I had hurt my kidneys and damaged my liver by not eating any carbohydrates and doing this and that. So that lasted a month, the no carb thing. And then I had to stop that because it was literally, it became a medical problem quickly. And, that's when I kind of learned that extreme dieting is, the whole point of any long-term plan is it's got to be sustainable. And, the low carb, nice idea in theory, but it doesn't work and it's not healthy. Your body's preferred method of energy is carbohydrate. So to cut that out is just silly. And in my case, it got downright dangerous for a while there.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned in that last answer about motivation. Obviously, there's a lot of ups and downs in a weight loss journey. And what really keeps you motivated during the hard times?